back in '67, but that doesn't mean they couldn't be Republicans. So, along with their 5 sons, they exemplified the true meaning and conservative ideas of the party, and so we'd like to honor them on behalf of the Brownlow family and the Republican Party.
Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be in Wilson County with you this evening. It's a great way to start my part of the program, getting a bag full of candy to take home. I'm going to enjoy that very much. Homemade to that, so I appreciate that from the Brownlows. Let's give them a round of applause and thank them for all that. I'm very grateful. I tell you, you know how to get an Agriculture Commissioner fired up, starting out with a video about God made the farmer. That's pretty good stuff, isn't it? That's my favorite commercial at the Super Bowl, I'll tell you that. I kind of enjoyed God Made a Liberal too. I had not seen that one, I got to tell you. But I have seen liberal actions and activities that are undermining the strength of our country. But I'm glad that you're here tonight as a Republican Party to send a message about what Republicans stand for, to remind your neighbors and friends about how important accountability is, how important transparency is with the dollars of the taxpayers, and remind them who it belongs to. So thank you for doing that. Anybody tonight just a little bit proud to be a Texan? Good bit to be thankful for, much to be proud of. As a matter of fact, Representative Campbell, we had one former governor of this great state that was so proud to be a Texan, he would go out and give speeches, and one night he got a little bit carried away giving a speech. He pounded on the podium, and he included George Washington in the Lone Star State's roster of heroes. The way he told the story, he said, young George went outside one day, took his machete in hand, and chopped down his father's mesquite tree. Well, Mr. Washington, the elder, learned about this, and he called young George inside, and he said, son, did you chop down my mesquite tree? We all know what young George said, Father, I cannot tell a lie. Well, he looked at him square in his eyes, and he said, son, pack your bags, we're moving to Virginia. Young George said, well, fine, Father, is it because I chopped down your mesquite tree? And his dad said, no, son, it's because if you can't tell a lie, you'll never amount to anything in Texas. Now, I shared that because we got a visitor from Missouri here tonight, and I thought we'd show them what Texas is all about. The truth is, you don't have to tell a tall tale in Texas, and you tell them in Missouri, it ain't bragging if it's true. We're very proud of what we have here in Texas. We're the #1 cattle producing state in the nation. Agriculture still contributes about $100 billion a year annually to our state's economy. And I know that agriculture is very important here to the Wilson County economy as well in this part of Texas. I sure am proud of your state representative, John Kemp. It is good. It is good to have people in the legislature that come down to Austin to represent your interest, and they never forget that. He understands that he is sitting there to work on your behalf. He gets up, he gets the job done. His yes is a yes, and his no is a no. Don't you wish Washington would operate a little bit more like that? Thank you, John. I appreciate that. I had the opportunity to serve with Edmund Kimball as well. And Edmund is one of the first people that I met there. In my home county is Anderson County in East Texas. Palestine is my home. I get accused of being from Palestine a little bit from time to time. I tell them Palestine's a little farther to the east than what Palestine is. But I got to benefit from Edmund Kimball's service and now John. So that's a great thing for me, and I'm a better person for it. You know, I want to talk tonight about the most effective person inside the Beltway. It's not our 2 senators that we have, although both of them are doing a mighty fine job. It's Robert Griffin III. Don't you think so? I got to tell you, here's what gets me. I'm a die-hard Dallas Cowboys fan. And I have a love-hate relationship with the Redskins. I love to hate them. And then we got Robert Griffin III up there, a Texas young man, playing for the Redskins, and I find myself rooting for him because I want him to do good. And you know, he can make more yards with a hurt leg wearing a brace than Tony Romo can at full strength. It just kills me. It kills me. This morning, you'll be glad to know that Austin started the day right. You cannot say that much and many times, but today they started with the Texas prayer breakfast. I thought that was a good way to remind everybody that even though the legislature's in session, God is still in charge. Isn't that a good message? The speaker there this morning was a pretty entertaining guy. He started picking on everybody that was there. He said, I guess y'all know all Aggies are going to go to heaven, right? Aggies thought that was a pretty good idea. But then he went on to say, because none of them ever reached the age of accountability. But then he went right to the Longhorns and he said, you know why they wear orange on Saturday? So they won't have to change clothes when they're picking up trash on the side of the road on Monday for He picked on everybody. He said he grew up in Lubbock where the wind would blow 40 miles an hour, and they knew if somebody was from East Texas like I was because they would spit into the wind. He said that they knew they were from Arkansas when they tried it twice. It was a fun day at our state capitol. You know what? I am really excited about the future of our state. And I am still encouraged that we can have a United States of America that can live within its means, have a federal government that understands the real strength of our nation as its people, that we are successful from God's blessings. We're successful when we recognize that it is our free market enterprise system and individual responsibility that creates prosperity. There was a Gallup poll that was done last week or so that said only 27% feel good about the future of our country. And that's skewed because the Democrats are a lot more optimistic than Republicans are right now. You know, I think when I come to a Republican Party gathering like we are tonight, you know, I know that there's a deep sense of remorse and pain that we have over the last presidential election. And it just kind of is tugging at us a little bit. And some people may think it's because we lost the election and we don't like losing, but that's just not it. They might think it's because we lost the Senate when we thought we was going to get that back and get things turned around and spending and living within our means, but that's not it. I think what tugs at us a little bit more is that a majority of the people in our country can vote for a policy and a program that undermines our strength and sovereignty as a country when you don't have balanced budgets and you don't live within our means and you look to the federal government for the solutions rather than the private sector and individuals who invest in our economy and create jobs. And that's the real thing that tugs at me. But when I think about you all coming out here tonight, it reminds me, you know, that Texas is doing pretty good. We had 1,200 people a day moving to Texas last decade. This decade it's projected that we're going to have 1,500 people a day. I just want those people to think like Texans and us not start thinking like them. How about that? We've had consecutive positive sales tax returns for over 33 months now, over the previous 12 months. And these are things that are happening. Obviously, you all have seen the shale play here that's been pretty nice. It's good to be late in rural Texas because of traffic jams. Now that causes problems as well, and I recognize that, but there are many states that will trade places with a Lone Star State right now. And they don't have what we have, but they're paying attention. They're looking at what John Kemble and others are doing in the Texas legislature to see how we want to be a welcome mat of opportunity. We want people to come to our state. You know, jobs and capital will flow to where they are welcome. Last session, we had a shortfall, so the legislature did what farmers and ranchers do. They did what small businesses do. They reduced spending to meet the revenue that was forecasted, got expenses down, And what happened as a result of that? The economy continues to flourish. More money now that can legally be spent. Not all states react that way. The land of Lincoln Day dinner here tonight. The great state of Illinois had a similar set of circumstances. The way their legislature dealt with the issue was that they raised their corporate income tax rate from 4.8% to 7%, and they raised their personal income tax rate from 3% to 5%. Now, when they did that, immediately things started happening. Companies started looking to relocate elsewhere. Caterpillar, 90-year-old company, international, based in Chicago, started looking to move their headquarters out of state. Not only them, but the Chicago Mercantile Exchange and the Chicago Board of Trade started looking to move elsewhere as well. I think the Wilson County Board of Trade sounds pretty good to me. How about y'all? Their legislature had to do some things. They immediately appropriated $300 million, not to pay teachers, not to build new roads. They had to appropriate those dollars to keep those businesses in their state. So as we think about how we move forward as a state, we need to keep in mind that people are looking. And other states are starting to look and seeing what we're doing, like Louisiana, the Carolinas, Georgia, and others. They're trying to adjust their policies so that they can be competitive and compete with those jobs that we all want to see move to Texas. And so that makes me think how we need to look to the future. And anybody in California dreaming in the 1960s? There's no tomorrow, right? And it's a stark contrast with where they are today. And so we have to make good decisions today so that we can have a prosperous future tomorrow. And that starts with sending the right message to young people about what it means to be successful. You know, we're the GOP, the Grand Old Party. I kind of think we need to be known today as the Grand Opportunity Party. Because we believe in upward mobility. We believe that anybody can live the American dream no matter how humble their beginning. My father worked in a factory for 36 years, doing shift work for 36 years. Never could sleep in the daytime. And it was not fun being a kid, trying to be quiet in the daytime when your dad was trying to sleep. When I got out of school, we had two choices when he was on the shift that we could go out and do things. We could go out to the farm and work, or we could stay inside and study. And those were our two choices. I'm here to tell you, education became a whole lot more important to me when those were the two choices. Y'all remember last year when the Department of Labor tried to promulgate new rules that would restrict a young person's ability to work on their family farm and ranch? Y'all remember hearing about that? You can't make this up. They really did try to pass rules and regulations that would limit young people from working on their family farm and ranch. I want y'all to know, young men, 35 years ago, I'd have been all for that policy. I thought that would have been a good thing. But it's amazing what will happen when you're talking. You know, you got to go out and earn things. You got to go out and get it. Don't wait for somebody to give it to you. It's amazing when you're also taught to treat your neighbor as yourself. That is a golden rule that we all need to be thinking about. And that's who we are as Texans. That's who we are as Americans. And I don't want to let that go. And the way that we're able to hang on to that is to fight for what we believe in and to stand up and work for it. And to go into the halls of the legislature and to make certain that policies reflect your priorities and not politics. I kind of believe that good policy makes for good politics. Because if you get the policies right, you know you're doing the right thing. And people recognize that. And that's what we need as a state, and that's what we need to be focused on. We've got water challenges. We know agriculture knows it before anybody else does. We lost $8.3 billion in direct cash sales from the drought of 2011. We're in a perpetual drought today. The lake levels around the state are about 66% capacity. And we're in the middle of rationing and restricting, right? I want to tell you something. You cannot ration and restrict your way to growth. We've got to develop new water resources. We've got to look at desalination with low-cost natural gas because those economics are going to work a little bit better. Agriculture continues to lead the way in new seed varieties that are more drought tolerant, new irrigation systems that are more efficient. I know that the legislature is debating some policies at the state level today. I think the state has a definite role, although it's the local governments and cities' responsibility first. I used to be on the city council. I can tell you that water, having available water is good economic development because you can't recruit jobs and businesses and not have the water resources that you need. And ratepayers have to pay for that, and I hated it. I hated looking at those water rates, figuring out how to do that. But if you don't have water, you can't grow. And we don't need to be a state of 26 million people today going to grow to 40 or 50 million in the next few decades and trying to ration and restrict water. We need more water resources. We need capacity. And we're going to have to get serious and get focused on that. And it's the local level first, but the state has responsibility in planning and in research and finding low-cost financing options. And I'm excited that debate is occurring today. I was giving a speech in another part of the state a couple of months ago, and I said, anybody driven through Austin lately? A guy yelled out at me. I hadn't driven through Austin, but I've sat through there. So you all know how that feels, don't you, when you go through there? We've got transportation issues, and as the former chair of the Transportation Committee when I was in the Senate, I can tell you we had testimony where businesses chose not to expand in Texas. They took their jobs and they took their money out of state because of the congestion here in Central Texas. So we're going to have to build roads. We're going to have to pay for those. We're going to have to do it with accountability and transparency in the way that we do business so that every taxpayer knows they're getting a fair shake. And if you don't like the way it's being done, you can see it and you can know what's happening, because as free market people, we recognize that you get what you pay for, right? And we want good systems, we want good schools, and we want good opportunities for our children and grandchildren. These decisions are yours to make. You're the ones that are involved in the process. And I am so grateful that you are, and thankful that you care about the future of our state. As Ag Commissioner, I was called a couple of years ago by landowners, farmers and ranchers that live on the Texas-Mexico border, because the drug cartels were chasing farmers and ranchers literally off their property. You go to a website that we put up, protectyourtexasborder.com, and it's got a picture of a ranch foreman's pickup that's riddled with bullet holes. He was driving across the ranch one Sunday afternoon, saw a pickup in the distance, thought it was oil field workers, like anybody would. Turned his pickup toward them. As he got closer, he immediately started receiving gunfire. He tried to speed away, and finally he did what any Texan would do. He reached behind the seat of his pickup and he started returning fire. And when he did, they left. How about that? It is a very serious problem, regardless of what Secretary of Homeland Security Janet Napolitano says. The border is not a safe place for farmers and ranchers that live in rural areas. We've got some bright spots along the border. Mexico is the #1 trading partner for the state of Texas. It is an awesome thing to have trade and jobs both ways. I have worked with my counterparts in Mexico extensively. We work with exporters here in Texas that export products. We want our neighbors to do well, but right now, drug cartels have been responsible for the deaths of about 60,000 individuals in Mexico. They've been responsible for deaths of people in Texas. And it's not good enough for me for our federal government to say it's better than it ever has been when farmers and ranchers know different. I was in the middle of a DPS helicopter. I was in that DPS helicopter in the middle of the night about a year and a half ago. I was observing as DPS was directing Border Patrol on the ground to go after individuals. And it was the middle of the night. It was pitch dark. You know, and I was sitting there thinking, we don't know if they're sending those agents to go after a heavily armed drug cartel member, or they're going after someone that's entering our country unlawfully, but that's otherwise looking for a job. And it made me realize, as a conservative, as someone that wants to be very frugal with your dollars, we have demand in our country for a workforce that is not met by a domestic labor force. It had been for 60 plus years. You remember the Bracero program, some do, that was ended in the 1960s because of the United Farm Workers and President Johnson. So the market is working. It's pulling people to where jobs are. But what a force multiplier it would be if we modernized our workforce system, if we modernized our guest worker program to allow for the workforce that our nation needs and directed our law enforcement after those drug cartels and went after them and stopped them and secured the border of the United States. That's what we need to do. And Texas is home to 2/3 of our entire southern border. I think we can lead on this. Texas is a very diverse state, a very welcoming state. We know that all people have value, and we can end a system that is an unfortunate one that is not working today. And we can do that in a good manner if we get around the table and try to find solutions that moves us all forward. But those decisions are yours to make. I actually wrote a book about that last year called Broken Borders, Broken Promises. And you can go to my website at toddstaples.com. I'd encourage you to look at it. I don't get any of the net proceeds. Another bad deal I've made. But I've dedicated them to causes to secure our border and to reform a failed and broken immigration system. China has a one-child policy. Right? Something that most of us that care about life doesn't think a lot about. They're thinking about revisiting their one-child policy because they don't have the workforce that they need to keep up with the demands of their economy. That's what's taking place today. The future of Texas is a bright one. I read some words of a fellow by the name of G.K. Chesterton, who was a poet in the early 1900s. And he wrote some words that meant a lot to me. He said, the true soldier fights not because he hates what is in front of him, but because he loves what is behind him. And I know you love this state, and I know you love this country, and I know it's going to have a bright future because of your work. Thank you so much for letting me do this. I appreciate it very much.